All right, everybody, welcome back to Horn Takes Live. Sean Redfern. Non-conference play is over. Texas is 3-0 for the first time since 2012. That's kind of sad, but also kind of exciting at the same time. Pretty unimpressive 3-touchdown win over Wyoming on Saturday night, but hey, a win's a win. We're headed into conference play. Now it's time for the Big 12 Fuck You Tour to begin. I can't wait. Folks. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. We're trying to get to 200 followers on Twitter. We've only been on Twitter for a couple months, 2 or 3 months. Trying to get us to 5,000 on TikTok. So if you're listening to this, you see this on YouTube, you're not following us on TikTok, go ahead and give us a follow on TikTok. And then we're trying to get to 1,000 on YouTube. If you're on TikTok and you see this video on TikTok, you should just jump over to my bio in TikTok, click on the little YouTube button, and subscribe. That would help me out. If you guys just like to listen to podcasts, you can find us at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Week 3 Trace Otra games. We did a lot better this week than we have done the first 2 weeks. First 2 weeks, we were 1 for 3. This week, we were 2 for 3. Still shooting for that perfect score on the Trace Otra games. We had some really cool games. We had number 14 LSU at Mississippi State. I didn't see any way in hell Mississippi State was going to win this game. And there was no way in hell Mississippi State was going to win this game. I had LSU 41-20. LSU won it 41-14. So we got that 1-0 right off the bat. South Carolina at number 1 Georgia. I said, I like South Carolina in this game, y'all, to cover. I thought they'd cover, but I said Georgia would win easily, like 44-17, 45-17, something like that. I think I kind of got my math a little jacked up, but that's okay. We do this shit on the fly sometimes. I was really surprised. I thought South Carolina would cover this game. I didn't think they'd cover as well as they covered. Georgia 24, South Carolina 14. So, I mean, I think if you're a Gamecock fan, you don't ever like to lose, but I think you got to be a little bit excited about losing by only 10 to the number 1 team, the 2-time defending national champions, Georgia Bulldogs. Really talented team, really deep team. Tennessee at Florida. This is the one we got wrong. Number 11 Tennessee goes on the road to the Swamp. I said, man, if Tennessee finds a way to lose, and I didn't really realize how dominant Florida has been in this series in the last 18 games. You go back to the early 2000s, Tennessee and Florida was kind of a back and forth series, and man, but after I don't know, the last 18 years since 2005, Florida has won this thing 16 times. But I thought for sure Tennessee was going to go get it done for the second time in a row. I said, if they don't, there's going to be tears up on Rocky Top. There's going to be gallons of moonshine consumed up on Rocky Top and a lot of bad decisions and probably another generation of Tennessee fans that cannot beat Florida up on Rocky Top. And I think all that happened. Man. I had Tennessee 31-27. And Florida just came out like gangbusters. I think it was 26-9 at halftime. Game ended up being 29-16. Really big game for Etienne Jr. He ain't a junior. I call him Junior. His big brother, Trevor Etienne, 23 carries for 172 yards. So that was our loss for the week. Let's get into this Wyoming Cowboys recap. Texas was a 28.5-point favorite. I said I thought we'd be slow coming out of the gate. I talked about it multiple times on both shows last week. Really hard to go on the road and play a game in Tuscaloosa and really, a close game until the very end. So I think, winning that game took everything it could take away from Texas emotionally. So I thought going and doing that, and then just hearing all the, it's hard not to just be happy about yourself, man. You went and did something that the program hasn't done in a long time. It's hard not to come home, be real happy about that, and just kind of miss out on some of your preparation. And so I thought they'd start slow. Man, did they start slow? I had no idea. I said maybe close game through the first quarter and a half, and then Texas would start to pull away before halftime. This game was tied going into the fourth quarter, 10-10, folks. I predicted 45-13, ended up being 31-10. I had some big questions going into this game. Can Texas avoid the letdown? We talked about these on Thursday. Can Texas avoid the letdown? No, they could not. They absolutely did not avoid the letdown. Question number 2, can Texas get the running game going? I think they got the running game going a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Will the crowd be a factor in this game? Look, I've said in Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium, through some really big games and through some games where the opponent wasn't quite as exciting, and you just kind of walked into the stadium feeling like it was just a given that you were going to win. And the crowd is a lot different from the first one to the second one. Alabama last year was one of the wildest crowds I've ever been a part of at Darrell K. Royal. Missouri back in 2008, that was another big one when Missouri was ranked. I think they were ranked in the top. They were ranked in the top 10 for sure. Maybe top 5 coming in there. Both teams undefeated. That was a wild atmosphere. A&M games have always been wild in there. But I'm wondering, like, are the Texas fans going to get up for Wyoming? I don't know. I wasn't there, unfortunately. But I haven't heard that it was dead. And I actually saw a few tweets, and I saw, some commentary that it was a pretty good atmosphere for a Wyoming game, for a non-conference game against Wyoming. So I don't know. They unveiled the new lights and the new light show and all that stuff against Wyoming, had a really cool drone show. So I'm sure the crowd was crazy for that. I just don't know really how they were the whole game. On TV, it sounded like, pretty loud, not extremely aggressive, but I don't know. We'll call that one a push. Let's say the crowd did what we thought they'd do. Maybe a little more effort out of the crowd. And question number 4 for me was, after going into Alabama and having the game that he had, does Quinn Ewers, because I felt like when I rewatched that game that you could just kind of see Quinn Ewers, like almost like this burden was just like lifted off his shoulders, and he finally got emotional and was finally, it was the first time I can recall really seeing Quinn Ewers be emotional after a win or after a loss, anything. The guy's like just not that emotional, which is cool. I'm not that emotional either. But I was wondering, now that happened for him, does he play with like a newfound freedom? Is he loose? Is he confident? And man, I just don't feel like we saw that Saturday night. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on as well. And then can the defense continue to force turnovers? They only forced 1 turnover, but it was a big one. Helped kind of break the game out in the fourth quarter. So yes, they did continue to force turnovers, and that's been a big emphasis for PK and Steve Sarkisian all offseason. And then finally, to the big humans in the trenches, just kind of take this game over on both lines of scrimmage. And I think they did. I think they did. It could have been better, but I think the majority of the night, the defense was really, really stout up on the front 4. I think the offensive line was good in pass pro. I think the offensive line opened up a lot of holes in the running game. I just don't think we ran the ball enough. So offensively, we had 185 yards rushing, which was 6 yards per carry, by the way. I don't understand. I don't understand if you're averaging 6, and I know Steve Sarkisian's not standing there with a calculator and going, okay, we're averaging 4 yards per carry now. Oh, we're averaging 5 yards per carry now. I know he's not doing that, and probably nobody's doing that. Maybe somebody's doing that up in the stands or up in the booth. I don't know. Probably not. And they're probably not going, hey, Sark, we're 5. Now we're 6. So, but I feel like it's not hard to feel how that's going through the court. I mean, you can tell the difference by watching a live game. The running game is performing really well, or the running game is performing really bad. And I never felt like at any point in that game that they couldn't just run the ball against Wyoming. Pretty abysmal 131 yards passing on 52% completion percentage on 21 attempts. Just not a good night for Quinn Ewers. We only ran 52 plays and possessed the ball for 21 minutes. So it was really kind of a weird game, offensively. I think Wyoming came into this game and said, we want to make this ugly. We want to try to possess the ball. We want to keep Texas's offense off the field as much as we can. And they were able to do that a few times in this game, where they took some pretty long drives. Players that popped offensively for me, Jonathan Brooks is obvious one. 21 carries, 164 yards. Really, really kind of took over that fourth quarter. Had a really long run there in the fourth quarter to set them up for a score. I want to see more. I want to see more of this running game. I think this running game continues to be a very underutilized weapon for Steve Sarkisian. I know he wants to throw the ball. I know he wants to get the ball down the field. I know he feels like he's got one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I know he feels like he's got one of the best tight end / wide receiver rooms in college football. But man, let those big dudes eat and let those running backs get some carries. And I think if you start doing that earlier in the game, which I think this goes completely against his philosophy, but if you can hurt defenses with the run early in the game, you're going to spend the whole rest of the game getting tons of looks down the field in the passing game. And I think defenses know that Sark is not going to run on them early on in the game. And so they just sit back and say, we're not going to give you anything over the top. So y'all can try to dink and dunk it down the field. And unless Quinn Ewers is accurate and unless wide receivers catch the ball, you can't dink and dunk it down the field. Savion Red sighting. I thought that was pretty awesome. He was another player that popped for me on offense. He spent the whole week before the Alabama game playing Jalen Milroe. And he got a chance to come. He must have done a good enough job to not only did he do a good enough job to prepare Texas to play Jalen Milroe and have success against Jalen Milroe, but he got an opportunity to play in a real game. They ran a couple Wildcat plays on fourth downs. He picked up both of them. I think he averaged 6 yards per carry out of the Wildcat. So good for Savion Red. I think, man, he's like one of those dudes that could just play a whole lot of positions at Texas. He played quarterback in high school, so he was certainly comfortable taking snaps. He's lined up at running back. He's lined up in the slot. I think he can play just a multitude of positions. But I think he kind of got himself in the doghouse early on in fall camp. We'll see if Savion Red gets a little more carries as we progress through Big 12 play. I thought the good on offense, the offensive line again, I thought they were really good in this game. 185 yards rushing on 6 yards per carry. I thought they protected Ewers well. They only gave up the 1 sack. And then I thought Worthy getting an explosive off of a short pass play was something that we really haven't seen this season. We've seen a lot of Worthy getting down the field and catching balls down the field, but we haven't seen the, sort of the little quick screen where he makes a move, turns on the jets, and just absolutely outruns everybody. We saw that against Wyoming. I hope we start to see a lot more of that as we continue into Big 12 play. Now let's talk about the bad, and there's a lot of bad from this offensive performance Saturday night. Too many errant throws. I counted 6 what I would consider missed throws by Quinn Ewers. And for me, it doesn't. You might have got a lot lower count if you counted such things. For it's not hard for me to say that's a terrible throw, especially in the short to intermediate game. I mean, the accuracy has to be there, and it just wasn't. He almost threw a pick in the end zone, just kind of chucking it up. Didn't see the safety over the top. Ewers started this game 1 for 6. And I just, man, it's what puzzles me about. He rarely has a fast start. So it really kind of puzzles me why the game plan is always let's come in and start chunking the ball all over the place. I don't know, man. I don't know what Quinn Ewers' trigger is, or what how some coaches say let's get a little play action, let's get him on the run, and let's get him a quick couple throws just to build some confidence, get him in the rhythm of the game. I don't know what does that for Quinn Ewers. I don't know if there's a thing that does that for him. I think sometimes he's just on and sometimes he's just not. And Saturday night, to start that game off, he just absolutely was not. Too many drops. I think I counted 3. 2 for sure. 2 right back to back on the same drive. It hits you in the hands, folks. You got to catch it. That's what Sean considers a drop. If you can get your hands on it, you should catch it. We talked about it a minute ago. They gave up that big sack that kind of put them out of field goal range in the third quarter. And lastly, we had our first turnover of the season. Jaden Blue fumbles late. Really unfortunate, man. I like Jaden Blue. I like his style. I like his explosiveness and speed. But he got real lazy on a first down, or a play where he picked up a first down and just got stripped. And I think late in the game like that, you got to be, protecting the football is number one, should be number one at all times for a running back, but especially if you're trying to wind the clock down on a lead, you gotta do your best to even if it makes you slower, even if you trade yards for protecting that ball, you got to protect that ball. And that's a learning experience for him. He hasn't played a lot of football. Flip over to the defensive side of the ball. They gave up 155 rushing yards on 38 carries. Again, Wyoming came into this game and said, we're going to try to possess the ball. We're going to run the ball. 62 of those yards came on one run, which we'll talk about that. That was a pretty interesting play if you actually break down the play to see just all of the things that went horribly wrong for Texas on that one play that eventually led to that big run. 136 passing yards on 28 attempts. Wyoming came in and most of the passing was really quick. Get the ball out, one read stuff, not a lot down the field. I thought overall it was another really good performance by the defense. They did give up that long run, but after that, they didn't surrender anything until very late in the third quarter, and it was a field goal. I thought they were a little sloppy procedurally. We had a lineup offsides. I don't know how you line up all, and it was bad. Like, I was screaming at the TV, like, back up, dude. Like, how do you not know you're offsides? I mean, his helmet had to be like almost touching the guy in front of him. And then there was an illegal substitution. And those are the type of penalties, just like the procedure stuff hurts you offensively, it'll extend drives for the offense when you're on defense. And it's free yards. You can't do it. And that's really the first time this year that we've seen the defense have that problem. We've seen it a little bit on the offense. In fact, I'm pretty positive there were a couple procedure penalties on the offense in this game. I think they gave up a couple of explosive plays. We talked about the long run. There was one play in the passing game where the quarterback kind of scrambled around, dumped it over the top, and wide receiver did a really good job of getting back in his zone and making a play there. Let's talk about this running play. So this infamous first drive running play for Wyoming. So first of all, the defensive line was slanting towards the play side. So the play side tackle, the play side defensive end pretty much just completely slanted themselves out of the play. Then you got T'Vondre Sweat, who typically doesn't get beat by double teams, definitely doesn't get dominated by double teams. And a lot of times he figures out a way to fight through these double teams and make really big plays, but he got beat. They got him on this one. Backside guard and center, bodied him up real good, got him off the ball, got him walled off. And you got Barron Sorrell coming from the backside with just a really clean shot to make a nice tackle. Just absolutely whiffs on the tackle. And then Ant Hill, the young freshman linebacker, was playing on the play side. They had two backs in the backfield. The play was a little misdirection play where the running back lined up in front of Ant Hill, came across the formation. They faked it to him. He bit on that very, very hard. Got himself completely in the wrong A-gap. And then they handed it off coming the other direction to the kid that went and ultimately scored a 62-yard touchdown. So it was literally like every bad thing that could possibly happen. Like everybody didn't win on that play, on that Texas front seven. And then credit that kid, man. I was waiting for somebody to go catch him, or even maybe not catch him, but like gain some ground on him, and they didn't, man. That kid was fast. Players that popped to me defensively, I don't know how you have this conversation for this game without starting off with Jahdae Barron. I mean, that dude, it seemed like he made every tackle in this game. He had 9 total tackles, 6 solo, had a really, really nice pass breakup on a third down. And he was just absolutely a menace around the line of scrimmage. I love that dude in that position. He plays the star, which is, I wouldn't call it a nickel, but it's the fifth DB on the field, but he plays around the line of scrimmage. And man, you're just not gonna get the ball in front of him. If the game plan for you is try to throw the ball in front of Jahdae Barron and make him miss, it's a bad game plan. And the cool thing about Jahdae Barron is he can get down the field too and cover people. He's a big time player. He was doing really well last year before he got hurt. Maybe I'm thinking of Jalen Gilbo, another star player, but Jahdae Barron, man, I'm excited about him. If he keeps up this pace and can pull some picks, maybe force some fumbles, he's got to be a guy you think is going to be in that semifinals for the Thorpe Award. He's got that type of talent. I mean, he's an absolute star. Love watching him play. Another player that popped, Jaron Thompson. Second game in a row with a really big INT. Big late INT. Both times they've been late in the game in opposing territory. This time he got it in the end zone, 27 yards for the 6. I think, I don't know if that was a coaching adjustment, like a play call type adjustment, or just an adjustment that the defensive backs finally just decided they were going to make on their own. We're not going to let this guy like throw that quick out over and over and over again. And man, he jumped the hell out of it. Really nice play. Again, kind of blew the game wide open. I thought Barron Sorrell popped for me. We talked after the Rice game how Barron Sorrell was just like MIA. Like we didn't even know he was on the field. And honestly, in the Alabama game, you really didn't know he was on the field. But he showed up in this game, at least from the stat line. I mean, I think Barron Sorrell has probably been doing, what he needs to be doing, and the plays just haven't come. And sometimes that'll happen. But he made some plays, 5 total tackles, a really big sack for Texas late in the third quarter on a third down to force a field goal. Wyoming had taken the ball at like their 2-yard line, 3-yard line, and just marched down the field. And that was a big one. They had a lot of momentum at that point. Really good red zone team. So you're already up against it if you're Texas, and man, he stood up, made a really nice play. The good on the defense, I think this team tackles really well in space. Probably, I won't say it's the best Texas team I've seen in recent years tackling in space, but I almost feel like it has to be. I mean, you got to go back to that national championship team. You got to go back to that team that played in the national championship. Maybe like the 2011 team, I think, had a really good defense. I think you got to go back to those years for sure in terms of how well this team tackles in space. They held Wyoming to 1 for 2 in the red zone. Again, we talked about it. Wyoming going into this game was 7 for 7 in the end zone with 6 touchdowns. And their only red zone score in this game was a field goal. And then I thought it was a really nice turn away after the Jaden Blue fumble. A lot of backups playing at this point for Texas. And granted, there were some penalties that kept Wyoming back. But Texas made plays and just kind of kept them out. The bad, we talked about it. They gave up a really long drive in the third quarter after Sanborn had pinned Wyoming deep. And that's pretty much the only bad. And then, the busted run. Busted run and that long drive, I think, are the only two things you could point to defensively and say those were bad things that the defense did. Special teams, where they had a couple of really, really nice, explosive punt returns. He was one block away there in the fourth quarter from scoring. Ethan Burke just trucking down the field, just couldn't find the right guy to block. He ended up plowing somebody, I'm pretty sure, but wasn't the right guy. Wasn't the guy that ended up making the play. Thought Auburn was solid in the kicking game. He had a 37-yard field goal, made it look like nothing. Perfect on his extra points. Sanborn, man. Sanborn's becoming he's becoming like a really good weapon. This kid averaged 48 yards per punt Saturday night. Had a long of 56, 2 punts over 50, and then just a really, really great pin there late in the third quarter. Credit to those gunners for getting down the field. Steve Sarkisian's been saying since fall camp, he feels like he's got the 2 best gunners in college football, and he might. They're always down there. They're always down there waiting on the ball, and then they know what to do to kick the ball out. They did the same thing to Alabama. Really big weapon if you can punt the ball down there and get people to find the ball and stop the ball inside the 5. That is huge. And then I thought both kick coverage teams were good. The kickoff team, I think Wyoming brought it out once and didn't go anywhere. The punt teams were smothering. We talked about the gunners getting down and pinning the ball. Really good job on the special teams. Let's talk about the officiating. We haven't done that this year yet, I don't think. Last year, towards the end of the season, we had a whole lot of segments about really bad officiating. I thought the officiating in this game, in parts, the majority of it was fine. But in parts, I was like, what the hell is happening right now? The pass interference call against Terrence Brooks was just, it was criminal. First of all, I didn't really think he did a lot to keep him off his route. I mean, he had his hands on him, but if that's going to be the metric, you can throw pass interference every single play. I thought he did a good job to get his hands on him without really impeding his progress and stay with him. But not only that, the ball landed out of bounds like 10 yards past this kid. There's no flipping way. There wasn't. If Terrence Brooks wasn't even on the field, they wouldn't have completed that pass. And that was at a pretty pivotal moment. That was on that third quarter really long drive for Wyoming, and it was a third down. And I think they were probably in field goal range because their kicker has a really good leg. So I think ultimately probably the outcome ends up being the same. But I mean, they didn't even talk about it. The dude threw the flag. He said pass interference. The umpire or referee, whatever he is, the referee was like, all right, pass interference. Nobody came together to go, I don't know, man. I just think it was a bad call. And here's the one that's the most ridiculous. So there was a play where Svoboda, the quarterback for Wyoming, scrambles towards the visiting side of the stadium, gets knocked out of bounds. It looked like maybe the 12-yard line, maybe the 11-yard line, maybe somewhere in between. They spot the ball on the damn 8-yard line. And so Sark calls him over, and I don't know the procedure on this. I guess he asked to talk to him. Sark brings him over, and all I can assume is he says, hey, man, let's check that spot, which is 1,000% reviewable. They just did it on a play earlier in the drive. So you, of course, you can review spots. They ultimately didn't review it, and I don't know what they were talking about because this was a long, like, sort of timeout from the game. It drug on for a good, I mean, it seemed like 5 minutes. Maybe it wasn't that long, but way too long. Like, too much discussion for nothing happening. I don't know where they got the. I mean, I get like, a few inches, man. I'll give these guys a few inches. The plays are happening fast. The eyes only work so fast. Most of these dudes are old. I get it, man. You're going to miss some inches. And for the most part, I think they do a really good job. Like, it's pretty phenomenal how these line judges can come in and spot the ball. And I go, man, that's a good spot. Like, he was right on with that stuff. But this one was just incredibly awful. I don't know how you miss by 3 or 4 yards, but they did. And then I don't know how you don't go back and review it and overturn it. And the only reason, I know it didn't matter in this game, but man, it's going to come. There's going to be a game at some point where it matters. I think you got to be better than that. Referees, they were Big 12 referees, and Big 12 referees are notoriously shit, and it's already started again this year. Final thoughts on the Wyoming game. Wasn't a great game. I spent the whole game being pissed off. Like, I wasn't even happy at the end of the game when they got 21 points in the fourth quarter. I was just kind of, I was damaged at that point. I was having like flashback. I mean, again, I knew they would start slow, so I was prepared for that. But I don't think you could possibly prepare for how slow they actually started. So my wife got on me for being sulky. So I got to try to be better about that going forward. But in the end, they still won by 3 touchdowns. And when I rewatched the game, I didn't feel nearly as bad about it as I did as I was, emotionally caught up in the game as the game was going live. So, I mean, I think that's probably a pretty common experience. As the game's happening, you kind of, the ups are much higher than they really should be, and the lows are always treated, as a much lower than it should be. And then you go back and rewatch, and you're like, that wasn't that bad. And I kind of had the same feeling during the Rice game. It's a really, really explosive football team. They scored 3 touchdowns in roughly 5 minutes. They scored 21 points in the fourth quarter 3 times this season. So this team has the ability to just smack a bunch of points up on the board really quickly in all three phases, really. And I think Xavier Worthy's going to take one to the house at some point this season in the punt return game. I think Texas needs to run the ball more. I've been saying it. I've been saying it since last year, like midway through last year. Like, run the ball, man. Run the ball. First 5 plays of the game were passes. Second drive of the second quarter had no runs, all passes. Again, I think it's just it is Steve Sarkisian's offensive philosophy. He wants to go deep, and he wants to do that to loosen the defense up so then he can run the ball and win games, wind the clock down. And I think what we've seen in the past is this team start really fast in the passing game, and we get these big leads, but then we never could protect them because we couldn't run the ball. Now they can run the ball. So I don't know. Maybe let's do an opposite day thing where we run the ball down their throats for the first quarter and a half. And then we just start chucking it wherever we want to chuck it. Probably not going to happen. I'm probably going to continue to be frustrated about this, and that's okay. I think this team offensively has to figure out a way to be more efficient in the passing game when teams are going to take the deep ball away. So a lot of teams now are running this 3-3-3 crap, or I don't know what it is. It's like 3 high safeties with 3 down linemen and 3 linebackers, and then these 2 like sort of like almost star position type guys for Texas. They're really defensive backs, but they play up around the line of scrimmage. It causes a lot of confusion in the blocking, the run blocking game. But it makes it really, really hard to get the ball over the top as well, because those 3 safeties are high safeties. So a lot of teams play that in the Big 12, and it makes it tough to go down the field. So they got to figure out how to get some momentum with some short passes, intermediate passes, which means Ewers has got to be on, and those guys got to catch the ball. Talking about Ewers, man, Ewers is good, and he doesn't have to. We said it before the season. We said I don't think Quinn Ewers has to go and win every single game for Texas. There's talent everywhere. The offensive line is together. They're gelled. They're good. You got a lot of talent there. They can run the football. They can protect him. You got weapons in the passing game everywhere. Every single skill guy on that field, every time they go out there, is a weapon. I mean, hell, the damn backup defensive tackle scored a touchdown in the passing game. They got a ton of guys that are weapons in the passing game. So all Quinn Ewers got to do is just get the ball to him on time and accurately. And that's really all he needs to do. And I just feel like he's so up and down. I think I don't think he's probably like a Heisman type candidate. And I know when some Texas fans see all this, I'm probably going to get beat up about that. I just don't see it, man. I know he's up. I know they're talking about him for the Heisman. They still are. I just really don't know why. To me, he's just not that type of player. He's too inconsistent. I feel like Texas fans are like expecting the second coming of Joe Burrows or something with Quinn Ewers. And again, man, I like Quinn Ewers. I like his game. I think it's great. He's starting to step up and be a leader. And by the way, folks, I'm not saying he can't ever be like a Heisman quarterback. I just don't think he's there yet this season. And he may be later on down the line. I don't know. I think a lot of his issues are just mechanics related. Doesn't always set his feet. Sometimes he can get lazy with his arm slot. It's hard to repeat something accurately if you don't do the same things with all your body parts every single time. It's just like being a pitcher. So I don't know. We'll see, man. If he's going to be the guy that plays his biggest games in the biggest games, I think that's awesome. But I don't think that's going to win you a national championship. And I don't even know if that's going to win you a Big 12 championship. I mean, I think there's a lot of this schedule for Texas is not like brutal in the Big 12, but it's not really easy either. I mean, they got BYU who just went on the road and beat Arkansas. You got Oklahoma who's been kicking the shit out of everybody this season. And granted, they haven't played anybody, but they're doing what you're supposed to do to teams that aren't good. You got Kansas State that's always going to be a scrappy team. You got Texas Tech at the end of the season who has had a rough start. Who knows? They might be able to pull it together and get themselves in position. I think they have the type of roster that can get themselves in position to maybe compete for a Big 12 title. Certainly they can ruin someone else's Big 12 title hopes. And then even the teams that you look at and go, that's a weak team. They're not going to play like weak teams. This is it, folks. They're going to play Texas one more time for the foreseeable future. And so Texas has got to be able to get their mind right for every single game they play. And it all starts with him to me. I'm not worried about the defense at all. I think the defense is going to keep this team in games no matter what the offense does. But if they truly want to be able to like have the type of season I think they're capable of, I think Quinn Ewers got to take that next step and just be better, man. The throw he missed to Worthy on that little, sort of corner route, drag route, whatever it was just bad. I just don't feel like Heisman Trophy, elite type quarterbacks miss that bad. I mean, he was wide open. And he just airmailed it. I mean, it wasn't even close. So again, I'm not trying to be down on Ewers. I'm just trying to be realistic about Ewers. Like I do not expect that kid to ever just come out and chunk it for 400 yards. I just don't think it's going to happen. And finally, the defense is just, again, really, really, really good. And I think it starts up front. Those guys up front are just active, abusive, strong in the run game, very active in the pass rush. And the really cool thing about the defense and especially the defensive line is they can rotate a lot of different. There's a lot of guys on this defense that aren't starters that are just as good as the starters. There's a lot of guys that come into the game and there's not any drop off. So this defense is, I think, you always got to be a little leery early in the season about what you think about the team and what you think about, certain people and positions and groups on the team. But I think after 3 games, I'm pretty safe saying that I feel like this defense is definitely the strength of this team, and in particular that defensive line. The quick and dirty Baylor Bears edition. First stop on the Big 12 Fuck You Tour, Waco, Texas. I used to not care who we won, who we were playing and who we beat. I just wanted to win, right? Like, so I never, oh my God, we beat Baylor. Never said that. Like, all I cared about was that we won the game, with a few exceptions. Like, obviously, back in the day, you want to beat A&M. You always want to beat OU. But the rest of the Big 12 teams, for the most part, I just wanted to win. I didn't care that we beat a specific team. For this last year in the Big 12, I hope with all of my heart and from the bottom of my heart and from the bottom of my black soul that we beat the ever living shit out of every Big 12 team this season. And when we do, I will celebrate those. And I'll probably talk trash to their fan bases. And it's stuff that I generally will not do. I just don't do that. But I'm so sick of the hateful eight in the Big 12. So I really do. And I've said it before. I hope if Sark can score 100 points on these teams, he should score 100 points on these teams. He should make it like just an absolute point that the rest of the Big 12 and the Big 12 going forward is just absolute garbage. Baylor's 1-2 with losses to Texas State and Utah. The Texas State loss was bad. First game of the season. I wouldn't call it a blowout, but it wasn't really close either. And then the Utah game was kind of an interesting one because I didn't get to see this game, but when we were tailgating in Tuscaloosa, there was a kid there that had Utah stuff on, I think, and he was watching the game on his phone. He had a group of buddies. Maybe they weren't buddies. Maybe it just was like tailgate buddies, friends he'd picked up at the tailgate. But they're watching this game intently, and I think Baylor kind of jumped out on. I think it was a low-scoring game, but Baylor had a pretty decent lead early in this game, and then Utah kind of came back and won it. So that's an interesting anomaly to me, and I wonder. I haven't got to see Baylor play this year, so I don't know. I don't know what that means, but it's kind of a weird deal and maybe a little concerning because I think Utah is probably a pretty good team. I know they're playing with their backup quarterback. Speaking of backup quarterbacks, Baylor's going to have to play with their backup quarterback because Blake Shapen it's been announced that he will not play in this game. And maybe he hurt his MCL, I think, first week against Texas State. They said he'd probably be out, I think it was 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 3 to 4 weeks, not 100% sure. Regardless, this could be a mind game. We might see Blake Shapen. I don't know. As of right now, officially, we will not see Blake Shapen. Because I was kind of looking at Baylor and their statistics and all that. The O-line's only given up 3 sacks this year. That's pretty good. 3 sacks through 3 games. They got 2 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries defensively, so they can turn the ball over a little bit. Man, I think, again, I haven't seen them play, and it's hard to judge when you play a Texas State and you play a Long Island State or Long Island University. That's who they beat. They won 30-7 against Long Island University. I didn't even know there was such a thing as a Long Island University. But it's hard to tell how good they really are or how bad they really are. I honestly feel like this Baylor team is probably just not that good. But it doesn't matter if you don't show up. So for me, in Texas, it's like you guys got to show up at the beginning of the game and be ready to play a game from the beginning of the game. I like that this team can play in the second half and especially in the fourth quarter of games. You got to be able to do that. You got to be able to finish games, and this team is absolutely good at that. 63 points in the fourth quarter through 3 games. But I think we need to focus a little bit on starting the game. So we'll see how that goes. To me, it's another one of those, hey, are they prepared? Do they show up? Texas is looking to go 4-0 for the first time since 2012, which again is equally exciting and also kind of sad. Texas is a 14.5 favorite at 14.5 point favorite at this point. We'll talk more about the Texas and the Baylor game on Thursday show at 6 p.m. Central on YouTube. Random college football thoughts. Let's talk about this Alabama quarterback situation. This thing to me is so bizarre. So Jalen Milroe gets benched after the loss to Texas, where he threw for 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 2 touchdown passes called back for penalties. He did have the 2 interceptions. One of them I feel like was not egregiously bad. One of them was really bad. The one to Jaron Thompson was rough in the second half. But on the season, this guy is up to this point through 2 games, 449 yards passing, 5 touchdown passes, 60% completions, a QB rating of 171, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns already. So he's already accounted for 7 touchdowns through 2 games. And they bench him. And let me tell you, folks, there's a whole lot of fans in the stands in Tuscaloosa just really unhappy with Jalen Milroe. And there's a lot of people in the media just really unhappy with Jalen Milroe. And, at the beginning of the week last week, you start hearing this, we're going to figure out what we're going to do. And I'm like, there's no way you don't start Jalen Milroe. The problem is not Jalen Milroe, folks. Jalen Milroe is a hell of an athlete, will be a hell of a passing quarterback, and he's already really good. Like, I think he's already beyond where Vince Young was at this point in his career. But this Reese kid that comes over from Notre Dame as the offensive coordinator for Alabama, he has got to do a better job of playing more towards Milroe's strengths. Let that kid hurt some people with his legs. And then you can get the ball over the top. Then you take some pressure off that offensive line. I thought the fact that there was really only one designed run for Jalen Milroe in that entire game against Texas was a massive gift. That this offensive coordinator from Notre Dame, Reese, I don't even know his first name, Coach Reese, just wrapped one up with a nice, pretty bow and handed it to the Texas defense. Because I think the Texas defense and staff were really, really worried about Jalen Milroe in the designed running game. So later in the week when they announced that Jalen Milroe's not starting, and listen, I checked out this Buckner kid's stats when he transferred to Alabama, and they were not good. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but it was ugly. Fugly is what it was. Terrible. So when I found out that they said, we're going to go with Buckner in this game, I was like, you got to be fucking kidding. I said, what the fuck, like out loud. Because I've seen Jalen Milroe play. I watched him in week 1. I watched him live in Tuscaloosa. I watched a replay of that game. Damn good player, man. But nonetheless, they go to USF in a sort of a rainy shit day, especially in the first half. And Buckner and Simpson look like refried garbage in that game. Like, if you are a Bama fan watching that game and you were running your mouth about Jalen Milroe, you had to feel like the biggest dumbass on the planet. And for me, as a Texas fan, I can't believe there was such a push by the fan base and by the media to sit Milroe. After the game, Nick Saban says we're going to reevaluate our quarterbacks and we'll find it. We'll decide who the starter is. Jalen Milroe's named the starter for the Ole Miss game. And there's a lot of theories out there on why this went down the way it went down. Some people are saying Saban did it to prove a point to the media and the fans that he knows what he's doing and they don't know shit. And I'm sure Nick Saban has that feeling about the fans and the media, but I don't think there's any chance in hell that Nick Saban risks losing a game to prove a point to the media and to the fans. There's some people out there that say Saban lets his quarterback or his coordinators have some rope, right? He gives them some leeway to make these types of decisions. And Reese wanted his guy from ND because he thought he had a better grasp of what they're trying to do offensively. I think I could buy that one. I could buy that Nick Saban has reached a point in his career where he knows that he can't effectively micromanage everything. And there's a reason why you hire certain coaches to let those coaches do those jobs. So he could have very well told this Reese kid or Reese guy or whatever, hey man, you're the offensive coordinator. You tell me who's the best player to get it done for. You tell me who gives us the best chance at quarterback. And I think if this is how this went down, I think this Reese kid just has a lot of ego, thinks he's got to have his guy, and he's dead flat fucking wrong. So, but anyhow, I think that's a possible reality of what happened. Then this story came out. I think McElroy says, it was some kind of suspension type deal because Milroe did not react very well at the beginning of the week when he had to split reps. And when there was all this talk about, maybe he wouldn't be the starter going into this Southern Florida game or South Florida game. And so I could definitely see Saban taking that opportunity to prove a point to Milroe and the rest of his team that if you act like an ass and you don't do what you need to do to prepare, regardless of what side, what sort of situation you're in playing time wise, I could definitely see Nick Saban making that point. And I could definitely see Nick Saban risking a possible loss to make that point to a player on his team and the rest of his team. I think what's the most likely is that is what happened. But regardless, you got Milroe back, and I mean, that Buckner kid couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. He looked worse than I probably would look out there, and that's bad. I mean, it was awful. And Ty Simpson did okay. He had a really nice throw to a tight end running up the seam. I thought that was a nice ball. But for the most part, you could tell. And again, folks, this is against Southern Florida, South Florida. This is not, Ole Miss that's coming into town. This was not a good team, and these guys did not look good against them at all. Milroe, 100%, is your best option at quarterback, Bama fans. I hope you realize that now. And if they'll let that kid run, if they will build, and it doesn't have to be a ton, but if they'll build some running game around him, it's going to open stuff up for the running backs. It's going to open stuff up in the passing game. It's going to protect that offensive line who's struggling. It's going to protect them a little bit. Alabama has the talent to go win the absolute rest of their games this season in SEC play. No doubt in my mind. The question is, can this Reese offensive coordinator pull his head out of his ass and realize what he's got in Milroe, or does he try to continue to jam a square peg through a round hole? I don't know. We'll find out, man. I really like Milroe, man. I like his poise. I like his ball. I like his deep ball. I mean, the kid can throw. He makes a mistake. He's hardly played any football, folks. He's going to get better at that. He's going to get better at that mental part of the game, understanding what defenses are trying to do to him. I don't know. Felt bad for him when they benched him. I feel great for him now that they put him in. Hopefully they'll utilize him the way they should. Kind of a caveat, like an offshoot of that discussion. Is there blood in the water in the SEC, man? Is SEC country got blood in the water for Alabama and Nick Saban? We've been talking about it for a long time. All at the end of last year, all through the offseason. Here we are now. They've got a loss headed into SEC play. Could this be the year that the sort of the Nick Saban dynasty sort of crumbles away a little bit? Do these other SEC teams that haven't been able to beat Nick Saban, haven't been able to beat Alabama, is this the year they figure it out? I don't know. We'll find out. Ole Miss is headed to town this week. I think something else that's interesting is there's really no dominant team so far this year. Georgia's offense doesn't look that great to me. Bama has one loss and kind of a QB controversy. LSU lost in a really rough way to Florida State in the opener. Florida State should have lost to Boston College on Saturday. You talk about explosive teams that, we talked about Texas being explosive. Florida State is also very explosive. Certainly bailed them out in this Boston College game. You got 9 of the 14 SEC teams already have a loss. Texas has looked kind of at times. Defensively, they've always looked really good, but offensively, they've struggled at times. I think Oklahoma's looked good, but they haven't played anybody. Same thing for Washington. I feel like Washington has looked really, really good so far this year, but they really haven't played anybody. So I think this year is like one of the most wide open, like we don't know what the hell is going to happen years in a long time in college football. And that's kind of exciting. Free Sean Preston. Folks, if you guys weren't watching that Mississippi State and LSU game, the most ridiculous targeting penalty that's ever happened in that game. A young man named Sean Preston made a perfect form tackle on the LSU quarterback. And somehow, some way, in unimaginable fashion, someone threw a penalty flag and said that was targeting. And then they reviewed it. And the jackass referee that was watching it said, you know what? That was targeting. That was literally how I was taught to tackle growing up. It's probably how 90% of you guys were taught to tackle. And they keep saying up in the booth, you just can't put your head in there like that. Well, guy, man, your body literally will not go anywhere that your head doesn't go first. We are upright on two legs. You can't make your body go anywhere unless you put your head where you want your body to go. I am struggling with this targeting bullshit, man. And that one was just, this young man makes a hell of a play in the open field. Not only does he get kicked out of this game for the rest of it, he has to miss the first half of the game on Saturday, another conference game. I don't know how important he is to their defense, but it doesn't matter. You just robbed a kid of a whole game for making a form tackle. They got to change that rule, man. I get the spirit of it is to protect players. They've got to start calling it more on offensive players, because a lot of these targeting penalties, these head-to-head contact penalties, are actually plays that are initiated by the offensive players. Running backs ducking their heads to take on contact. Wide receivers that catch the ball, turn and see contact coming and get low. When the defensive player has already said, this is my target, this is where I'm sticking my head to make this tackle, and then the offensive player changes where the target is, and the defensive player gets penalized for it. It's absolute bullshit. When they said we're going to do targeting as a penalty, the intent was not bang bang plays where people's helmets hit, or bang bang plays where I stick my face mask right in somebody's chest and run through them. They got to fix it, man. It's horrible. Rewrite the rule. It's horrible. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about this Henry Blackburn hit on Travis Hunter. And first of all, before I get into this, I think it really sucks that Travis Hunter got hurt. I don't ever want anybody to get hurt in football. Unfortunately, it's a very, very violent game. And the higher you go in football, the more violent it gets. The players are bigger, the players are faster, the players are stronger. If you've ever taken physics, all of those things add up to really big hits. And our bodies are only designed to take so much punishment. So guys are going to get hurt. It sucks. It's part of the game. I hope Travis Hunter comes back quickly. That dude is fun to watch play. Man, against TCU, I tweeted it. Travis Hunter for Heisman. I mean, the dude played 127 plays, made plays on both sides of the ball. Hell of a player. Hate it for him that he's hurt. But you freaking media people and you new fake ass Colorado bandwagon fans, y'all need to shut the fuck up and like take a lap. This is the same type of hit we saw over and over and over again in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And we still see it today, albeit at a much lesser rate. Like the players, they know it's going to get called. They don't do it as much, but we see it every Saturday. That type of play happens every single Saturday in college football. And suddenly, because it's Colorado, the media and all these fake ass fans that probably don't even like college football, definitely weren't Colorado Buffalo fans until this season. Y'all are acting like this kid freaking pulled a knife and started stabbing people in the most like unimaginable thing you've ever seen happen in a football game. Or y'all are acting like some dude ran off the bench while Travis Hunter was looking to his sideline to get the next play and just freaking T-boned him from behind. Hell, even Travis Hunter comes on and says, it's just part of the game. Even the cult leader, Dion, Coach Prime, has said, all you morons in the media and all you dipshits that are bandwagon Colorado fans, y'all are outside your minds. It's part of the game. The craziest thing about all this is if Hunter makes that same play, the same people that are making death threats to this kid, the same people that are putting his family and his cell phone numbers online and calling for him to lose his scholarship, y'all would be praising Travis Hunter because you know what? He's a dog and it's personal and we coming. That is the exact bullshit captions that would be on every single tweet if the video was Travis Hunter hitting somebody else like that. And you know how I know? You know how I know that's the truth? You know how I know that y'all don't give a fuck about the rules and y'all are just like pissed off because your amazing bandwagon season is ruined now, supposedly? It's because y'all have completely ignored the fact that Sanders ran down the field, headbutted Blackburn right after this play happened, which isn't even close to a football play. Or worse, some of y'all have acknowledged it and then praised it because he's sticking up for his teammates, right? Y'all have completely ignored the fact that Sanders stuck his fingers in a Colorado State player's face mask and attempted, I don't know if he got it, but attempted to gouge his eyes with his fingers. Definitely not part of football. Or you've acknowledged it and you've defended it in the most ridiculous ways possible. Oh, where I come from, that's called a mush or something. You like mush them on the forehead. Please. When Travis Hunter ripped a TCU player's helmet off by his face mask and chunked his helmet in week 1, he was just being a dog all over social. Travis Hunter is a dog, y'all. But all of a sudden, somebody hits him in the course of a football play, and y'all lose y'all's fucking minds. Bandwagoning aside, which I hate, I can't stand bandwagon people, and all you Colorado fans, Y'all know y'all are all bandwagoners. Colorado had like 10 fans last season. Colorado couldn't sell out at a Pop Warner Field last season. And now all of a sudden, the whole entire country is Colorado fans. But bandwagoning aside, I wouldn't even care that I get it. I wouldn't care though that y'all were bandwagoneers. But y'all have taken something that happened on a football field and gone after a kid personally, gone after a kid's family personally. For something that happened on a football field during the course of a football play. And yeah, it was a late hit, and he got penalized for it. Again, all you media and you fake Colorado bandwagoneers, y'all need to get a grip, swallow a large, extra large Route 44 Sonic glass of shut the fuck up and sit the next couple weeks out. Sick and tired of hearing it. Please, please stop. I said, please, y'all. Check us out tomorrow night, Wednesday, live. We'll be on TikTok, 6 p.m. Central Time. We'll just talk about whatever. We'll do a QA. Thursday, we're going to be live again here on YouTube, 6 p.m. Central Time. We'll do Trace Otra games for week 4. We'll pick 3 games. We'll talk about them. We'll predict them. We'll see if we're right. We'll get a little more deep into this Baylor Bears game, and we'll have a prediction for that game on Saturday. We'll probably have some more random college football thoughts. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Horn Takes. Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can check us out again at Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys get hooked.